This is Abe Friedtanzer from Awards Buzz, and I'm very excited to be speaking with Desmin Borges about Hangdog. How are you, Desmond?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
Good, good. Are you a dog person?
I am. I'm a huge dog person, but I don't have a dog. Lies the rub. I've got two small children, an 8-year old and an almost 5-year old. And I think we're finally getting to that point where they might be able to help contribute to the overall taking care of a new puppy that will hopefully live and grow with our family for many years to come. So I think we're on the cusp, but as of right now, I'm Sans dog owner.
So, do you think this film helps prepare you for what it's like to have a dog, and you think that's different than having children?
Well, I mean, for a long part of so far of my life of being a dad has been cleaning up other people's poop. So I'm very ready for that. Making sure that they're well fed, loved, taken care of. So I think dogs and children are very similar in that aspect. Luckily, the good news is that I have no initial ill will or feel jealousy towards my children or our possible new dog, unlike Walt, who unfortunately feels very uncomfortable and very jealous of a cute little pup.
Do you think this is a movie for people who really like dogs, or those who may be a little bit closer to Walt, who could feel transformed by his harrowing experience with this dog?
I think it's both in that sense. It's like the double edge of the sword. If you really love dogs, have pups, really appreciate having them around, I think there's enough going on in this film that you'll gravitate towards that part of the story. And once we get to the part where the pup's missing, it might get a little shaky for you, but don't worry, we're going to come out on the other side. And then for those who aren't so sure about it, I think we'll end up winning them over in the end, just because it's such a great and lovely humanist comedy about, a guy who's dealing with anxiety, struggling to live in his own skin, and then just by happenstance, he finds himself through a weekend journey while he's searching for this gorgeous little pup that he lost. So I think it falls under the umbrella for everyone.
What is it like sharing top billing with a non-human? Is that an experience you'd like to repeat? Does the weight fall on your shoulders more because you're a little taller? You know?
Yeah, I'm always happy to share top billing with someone as cute as that. I mean, I grew up in the 80s and I don't know, I think I was like 12 when Ace Ventura came out. So if this is like my calling card that is just going to be me and awesome animals and films and TV from now on, I'll gladly take on that responsibility.
Well, I was excited to recognize your primary human co-star, Kelly O'Sullivan,
Mm.
from St. Francis, and also from directing Ghostlight, which is a really incredible film.
Oh
What was
yeah.
it like sharing scenes with her and just sort of building that very fractured relationship, I would call it?
Oh, it was amazing. Kelly and I have known each other from the Chicago theater scene for almost 20 years now. So when we were going through the pre-production process and Matt and Jen were sort of, like whittling down the options based on availability, really, like we really, really lucked out. Like I saw Kelly's name and I didn't want to like tip my hat too much because Matt and Jen are absolutely fantastic human beings. And of course, I think that they're incredibly wise by casting me, right? So, like, I didn't want to derail the process that they had envisioned for Hangdog by any means, but I was secretly really hoping that they would pick her because she and I already had a relationship established. We knew how to work together. We're cut from the same cloth, being from Chicago, and I feel like with all of us sort of like going to Portland, which turned out to be Portland, Maine. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's an absolutely phenomenal town, right? But having friendly faces around and people that you already kind of know always makes the experience that much more easily digestible and, just fun to be around.
I'm from New England. I'm from Massachusetts, so I've been to Maine. I think not as much
So,
as others from Massachusetts, but more than a lot of
sure.
people who like they're like I've been to 40 something states and I'm missing Maine and New Hampshire and Vermont, and it's like why these are smaller places, but I mean Maine's huge, but
And they're right
Portland.
there. And they're right there. And they're right there. So, creating that relationship with Kelly was super easy. Like we knew what we were going uh, trying to do from the get go. And it was just like, we gave each other the green light because we trusted each other so much and we just went for it, man.
Well, I feel like I've seen you in a lot of TV shows, which I want to ask you about a little later, but this is
Sure.
obviously a different world, this independent film.
Mhm.
What is it like transitioning from one to the other? And do you have a preference between the two?
Like I always say, I think independent film is sort of my favorite medium at this point. Like, a very influential figure told me once early on in my career, film makes you famous, television makes you rich, theater makes you good. And I think independent film is the greatest mixture of film and theater together, right? Like you don't necessarily have a great amount of chefs cooking in the kitchen, studio hands, whatever, like trying to build out this story. Usually these low budget indies have, the director, the writer, maybe one producer there who are very invested in the film, right? They're very invested in the artistic voice of the film, and they, like me, want to tell whatever the writer's ambition is to the fullest of our ability. But you also get the greatest creative palette to just sort of get the green light to bring ideas and collaborate in ways that you don't necessarily get to when you're on really amazing TV shows or in really big budget films, right? So I get the opportunity to like really scratch that creative itch while continuing to get better, while pulling in that theater sensibility into a project. So I'm hoping that more come around. I really enjoy it so much, man. And this one in particular was great. Matt, Jen, and I, we hit it off from the very first Zoom. We were Zooming for like 90 minutes before we looked at the clock. And it was like, I felt like I had known these folks like my entire life. And so I knew from that point forward, whatever we were creating, we were going to be on the same page and that it was going to be awesome. And the experience it was absolutely phenomenal.
Great. Talk to me about
Yeah.
the title a little, because I feel like if you don't know, this could be like a slasher movie or like something like, I don't, Hangman, like I don't, what do you, how do you interpret the title and how do you think people will?
Yeah, well, like I know my face. Like if you put my face in a dictionary, I think hangdog, the expression that, but the word might be under there because I think I'm relatively well known for being funny, sad and funny, like all at the same time. And in my mind, that's what the hangdog expression is. Just sort of droopy eyes, maybe very melancholy, and then can sort of switch and turn on the charm and reel you in quite quickly.
You don't want to be thinking about utopia, with scooped out eyeballs or anything like that. Got to be careful.
Yeah.
That's the not the face that you want in the dictionary if we're gonna remember
No,
you by.
no, but if there is going to be like, like an alternate page, like a side B of like of an album, I definitely want, Wilson's eyeless self with just that deep, harrowing black void of eyeball to be on the B side.
I remember watching that early in COVID with my family, and that was the moment they were like, "No, we're out. This is it. This is
Wow.
it for this show." And I was like, "Okay, that's fine." We don't. I don't see this too often, but that's definitely not the vibe I think they were looking for.
Oh man, and it's so funny because we talk. It was funny when we were in Chicago. I got in touch with Gillian Flynn. We became very great pals throughout that process, and she's a huge fan of the film. And she moderated our Q&A at our Chicago screening last week. So it was really nice to reunite with her and sort of get her input. But she and I, so every once in a while, I just get a text from her, and it's just one eyeball, and that's it. You know and it's I don't know, pleases me. It tickles me. I'm sorry your family had an adverse reaction to that, but in the aftermath, I'm very happy with what we accomplished there and what I was able to partake in there as well.
Good shorthand, I think. Just the one eyeball. Well, I have seen you in something a lot lighter and considerably more populated, I would say, than lighter than Utopia and more populated than Hangdog, which is Only Murders in the Building this
Hmm.
past season, which has really been a lot of fun. And it's also nice because I feel like usually we get like a new character by themselves, but instead you get to be part of this really great group. What was
Oh
your
yeah.
experience with the show beforehand, and what was it like being part of it?
Well, I mean, Young Desmond, like Three Amigos, is one of my all-time favorite comedies. I mean, so much so that when I was 6 years old, when I saw it, I made everyone start calling me Ned Niederlander. Like, I really wanted to be whatever Martin Short was. So when it came up that the opportunity was on the table, like I said, yes. I didn't even care what it was. I didn't care how many episodes I was in. I just wanted to know that I was going to be with those guys, right? And once I found that out and started really digging into it, and then finding out that Daphne Rubin Vega was going to be my TV wife, and at 16, I was one of the hugest rent heads around. Like she's a queen among queens in my eye. So to like actually treat her like my real life TV wife queen was absolutely amazing. And I did my very first commercial in Chicago with Richard Kind when I got out of acting school. Um, so it was nice. It was like a really crazy full circle moment in a variety of ways for me. And I'm sure if you've interviewed anybody else who's been on the show, I'm sure they have nothing but amazing things to say about it. And it's because it's true. John Hoffman is the only showrunner that I've been around that's constantly smiling and popping jokes, right? And when you have Steve Martin and Marty Short, I'm not name dropping, but he likes to be called Marty, so I call him Marty now. So the rest of the world call him Marty. He likes to be called Marty, but all they try to do the entire time is, take the piss out of each other and have a good time, right? And so, like, when you have those three, like, at the top, like, setting the stage for that, it's incredibly easy, right? And then you have just everybody else who was brought in this season that we got to work with that is just so incredibly gifted. I mean, Kumail, I've been watching him and so proud of him as like a fellow Brown brother from afar for such a long time. Eugene Levy is ridiculous. Zach Galifianakis, Eva Longoria. Like, you're watching people who have been at the height of their game for such a long period of time, and you're just kind of hanging out, shooting the shit with them, having a great time. You go shoot a scene, everyone's making each other laugh, and then we come back and Steve Martin is doing sleight of hand card tricks in our holding area for us to kind of help pass the time. So, like, as a young boy, as a old boy, as now a man, like, it was truly like a dream comes true of a set, like, idyllic. I don't know if anything will ever sort of reach that level of just like ease and amazingness all at one time.
Well, there is something I'd like to posit, and that's, it's the 10th anniversary apparently of another show that is considerably less wholesome, and I don't think quite as popular, though it certainly has its fans. And it's interesting to see how Chris Gear, took a more endearing route with This Is Us, which was,
Mm-hmm.
not what I would have expected post this. Aya Cash with The Boys, which I probably would have expected post that. Tell me about You're the Worst, that whole experience, and how you think that show holds up today.
Oh man, we all went from being babies to adults on that show, right? We were all basically roughly in similar stages of our careers at that point. We were all relatively like somewhat known, but not very well known. I mean, so much so that when they first came out, it was us and Married with Nat Faxon and Judy Greer, who I absolutely love, but they were like pitching both of the shows at the same time in that hour block. It was going to be both of us, and they put all of their eggs in the Married basket, and we're just hoping for a little spark from You're the Worst. And then by the time both seasons aired and You're the Worst had found the sort of critical acclaim and fan base that it had, I think it really surprised everybody except for us who were on set, because yeah, reading those scripts, going to work with those people every day, having the same exact writing room for the first four seasons, we grew so incredibly tight. And it felt like at one point, like we were just all finishing each other's sentences. They were writing specifically for us. If we had an idea, Stephen was very open to exploring it. It was truly just like a lovely, creative sort of atmosphere. And at the same time, like, we worked hard. And for the first couple seasons, we played hard too. Like, we were known for, showing up at Vulture Festival lit, right? Like, like ready to bring the You're the Worst people what they wanted, us sort of emulating those characters. But yeah, I mean, we all grew up together. I was I had just met my now wife 3 weeks before we shot that pilot. Chris Gere's son, who's like 11 now, was I don't know, 1, 2, and when we started shooting it, and it just really something. Like I hold it so dear to my heart, and I'm so glad that Vultures approached us, and we're all going to get the band back together in November in LA to do the panel and the Vulture Fest. I got to say, as probably the biggest softie of the group, I'll wear glasses because I will be crying at some point. Just because I love those people and I miss it so much. And I know they're going to ask questions that sort of tug at the heartstrings and bring some things up, but I'm very much looking forward to it. And I miss it to this day. We all tell Steven if he ever wanted to do anything, a one off app, a movie, whatever it was, we'd all be down for it. We would stop whatever we were doing immediately and fit it into the schedule. Like it would make none of us, nothing would bring any of us more joy than getting back and getting that group of folks together again.
Great. Well, what are you working on next after all this?
Oh man, it's pretty wild because like where the industry is, there's been a lot of things that have been locked up during the strike that are coming out post strike. So I have a really awesome film coming out through Monarch Media and Briarcliff Entertainment with Chase Stokes and Lana Condor that we shot in Vancouver not too long ago. And then I just got done earlier this year filming another indie film, which I think is going to fall under the category indie gem. And it's going to be something that I'll say that. So look out for that. There's not a lot of, but Tim Blake Nelson stars in it. Marae Anos is in it. And it's just going to be something. So hopefully, I've strung together these few sort of independent projects that are going to be coming out that hopefully get the ball rolling again and start infusing some life into this, pipeline that's like, that big right now. Hopefully it opens back up and we get some stuff going.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, since this is awards buzz, I always like to ask people I'm interviewing, what's a show, performance, film you've seen recently that's really struck you as very awards worthy? And I want to tweak that and ask an independent film or two, if that's okay, given the enthusiasm you've demonstrated over this conversation.
Oh man. Let's see. Things that are awards worthy that I've seen lately. I got to be real honest with you. I haven't been watching nearly as much as I'd like to be watching lately. My son's gotten really in. My son's very into sports, and since it's sort of on right then, we've been in that sort of atmosphere. Oh man, I don't know, but I am looking forward because I am on the SAG nominating committee, so all of the screeners are going to kind of start coming out. I will say one thing that I did watch lately was it's on, is it on Apple? It's on HBO. Las Azules, about the women in blue, the first set of um, female police officers in Mexico City. I really found that to be pretty gripping. And one thing that I really enjoyed about it that I hope we start putting forward is it's in its entire original language, right? And there's subtitles underneath it. And even if you didn't have the subtitles there, like the way that it's shot and the way that the story sort of unfolds and the acting that happens in the direction, like you don't necessarily need to speak Spanish in order to feel the sort of tension and palpability that's happening there. Now, I'm not sure if that's necessarily awards worthy, buzzworthy, or anything like that. But I felt like that.
We'll start the buzz right here. That's fine.
Yeah,
That's
I
good.
thought it. I thought it was gripping, and I thought they did a really fantastic job telling that story. And I had no idea. Because it's based on realness, but like things that have kind of come out. I guess Baby Reindeer already had its due. Um, you know, can the bear do any wrong? I don't know. I know people were kind of like back and forth about this third season, but I really appreciated where they went with it. um who knows? maybe Only Murders in the Building will surprise some people next year around. Oh, I did want to ask you this: if we're talking about award stuff, since this is a conversation that's being had by many, do you consider The Bear a comedy?
Good question. Um, in some ways I do. I don't know. I think because people say the same thing about Barry isn't necessarily,
Mm-hmm.
wasn't necessarily a comedy. I think there are definitely comedic elements, and I'm entertained, especially by some of the cousins bickering. That said, it's
Sure.
also heart-wrenching, and so I don't know that anything is so clearly divisible. I think I often focus more on, category fraud, leads
Mm.
competing as supporting, that kind of thing.
Ah.
But I mean, for the Oscars, we don't have that kind of thing. So
Mm.
but it's hard, when I always think about the fact that Silence of the Lambs beat Beauty and the Beast for Best Picture, is that
How
is
are
that a
they?
fair contest?
Yeah, no. Well, but and like that's the thing because it's always been like musical and or comedy, right? And like I feel very proud that You're the Worst didn't start it. Certainly, there's always been mixing of genre, but I think at first, when FX bought the show, I think we were really setting out to be like this really dark comedy, and then before you knew it, like we started delving into Aya's depression storyline, into Edgar's PTSD storyline, and we really started bridging the gap and towing the line on whether or not that was a comedy or that was a drama or a romantic comedy or an unromantic comedy. So I'm always fascinated to hear these conversations about, well, this is this and this necessarily isn't that. I appreciate when stories can evolve and start playing some of those other keys on the keyboard that aren't just whatever their normal tone or tenor is supposed to be, and give us something new and exciting and help the characters delve into something deeper and take the storyline to a richer place. So um we'll see though. We will see. I mean, if nothing else, I think Only Murders in the Building should just win something for accommodating all of the schedules for the people that they had in this season. I mean, it might be one of the most star-studded television programs ever. I don't know. But it's certainly up there. It's certainly up there.
Well, it reminds me of, I think it was Mapleworth Murders, where they had all these, big names guest star on this short
Oh,
form series, and they said, if you don't have a lot of time, we're going to kill you off very quickly. That was the thing. Like, well, we want you, we can accommodate you, but if you can't make it, then you're in for a few seconds, then you're dead. So I think we brought up a lot of really good points in this conversation that I hadn't thought about at the beginning. So I thank you for that, Desmond, and I'm excited to see
of
what you do
course.
next.
Perfect. Thanks so much for having me. It was nice speaking with you.